Welcome to the sanctuary. I'm Kyle, and I'm here to tell you to never be afraid to step into the pleasure den of the absurd. Now, forgive my appearance. I'm all disheveled. My Norelco razor the other day, when I popped it open, it just exploded like it was in a 1930s comedy or something. Bling, everything just ploppity plop plop. So anyway, that's not what is important. What is important is today's topic. November 27, 2022 would have been the 80th birthday of James Marshall Hendrix. And the last video I did was an appreciation of the first posthumous release from 1970, which was called The Cry of Love. Great, solid album. There's been many studio albums and live albums since. And some of the latest ones are retreads of the old ones. And we'll get into that another time. But anyway, as I stated in that video, I am such a Jimi Hendrix fanatic that I figured, well, I was going to do a video of my top 10 favorite live recordings, official live recordings, and then my top 10 favorite studio recordings. And so I pulled out a bunch of the records, and I'm like, okay, I can make 10, but there's going to be a lot more to talk about. So at the end, there'll be a lot of honorable mentions. But we'll start off with number 10, maybe we'll call it. I mean, these are in no order. They're just going in the order of the releases. And if you're perceptive, you'll see just what kind of an order these are in. The last official studio album that we're ever going to get, it's called Both Sides of the Sky. And I'm going to have it in my obituary, yes, this is true, that I got this record released. Just to tell the quick story, the album previous to this was this one, People, Hell, and Angels. And there was a radio simulcast call-in show with Eddie Kramer and John McDermott. And I'm listening in on the internet, and they made a bold statement that I had never heard before. And it was that this was going to be the last ever official studio release. And I was like, what? This? So I called in, and I'm like, what about this one, that one, And I'm like, are these things just not in the vault, whatever? But I couldn't quite get it out. But I made my point, because I named several songs. But one of the songs that I did not mention just happened to be released on this record, and it was the one of all of them that I had been waiting for. And it's it happens to be the very last song on this record. The last song on side 4, the feedback-drenched sitar and drums instrumental version, Cherokee Mist. There are other versions of Cherokee Mist that were released prior to this on other records, but this is the only one with this instrumentation, and to me, it is the only one you'll ever want to hear. I was so happily surprised to see that it finally came out. I'd had it on a bootleg CD for like, I don't know, 30, 25 years. And it was the one thing that I was hoping to be officially released, and they finally released it. So, from both sides of the sky, Cherokee Mist. So, on the album prior, well, my first thought was, and I know the Hendrix studio recordings are finite, but I was like, wow, when I heard this album, it was kind of like, we're getting scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it's not a bad record. But there is some fallacies. I have an argument with some of the promotion of this record. And it was promoted as being the final official release. I just had not heard it, but in looking back, yes, you can see that they had said it. But the song Easy Blues, which was first released under the Alan Douglas years on the album 9 to the Universe, you know, on bootlegs, it's over 10 minutes long. And these guys were saying on the official, you know, promotional materials that Easy Blues was, oh, this is the full-length version. Bullshit. It's like 5 minutes long. The bootleg I have, it's over 10. So it's really not much longer here on this release as it is on the Alan Douglas one. So, you know, piss on that. But getting back to the topic at hand, the lead-off song on this record, Earth Blues. It's my favorite recording of this song. It first showed up on the soundtrack to Rainbow Bridge in 1971. And I like this version better. It's just guitar, bass, drums, and it's from the very first studio recording session from the Band of Gypsies, Jimmy, Buddy Miles, and Billy Cox. And I like it. I like it a lot. You know, to me, it's this recording of Earth Blues is my favorite one. Next, from the album preceding People, Hell, and Angels, the last one was Valleys of Neptune. This one is pretty good, and it also had a lot of songs that did appear on bootlegs. So, you know, you knew you were getting stuff officially released that, you know, never was before. And the same bootleg CD that the feedback-drenched Cherokee Mist was on also had the title track of this album, Valleys of Neptune, a great example of late period Jimi Hendrix guitar playing. And as I was mentioned in the Appreciation for Cry I Love, the chords that he's playing in this song. And again, this is just, you know, a run through in the studio pretty much. You know, probably like the best take that they did. And it probably would have been cleaned up and whatever. Maybe the middle section would have been trimmed up and, you know, a little more finesse put into it. But I love this song, man. Valleys of Neptune. It's Jimmy, Billy Cox, and Mitch Mitchell. the band that went on the 1970 Cry Love tour, which was a great band. I mean, from, the 1967 Jimi Hendrix experience to the 1970 Jimi Hendrix experience, it's such a leap in musicianship. And I think that, again, this is a great example, Valleys of Neptune, of late era Hendrix. And I like it. So that was number 8 of my favorite top 10. Whew. So the next 4 albums, I decided to pick 2, 4, 6, 8, right? 8, 9, 10. Well, I think I'm a little off, but whatever. I decided to pick 2 songs of the next 4 albums to make it 10, but I guess my math is off. Who cares? It's Jimi Hendrix. They're all good. That's why we're going to be talking about more of them after these. So, keep watching. Yeah, hey, that's right. You too. And you that's looking over your friend's shoulder, more's coming. So, from The Cry of Love, Drifting. Oh man, Drifting might be like my top 3 favorite Hendrix songs, and since I have to pick another one from this, I'll go with Astro Man. I always liked it, he plays one guitar line on one speaker, answers it on the other, and the 2 guitars working together, it's great. The bass is fat and pumping, and the drums are really good. It's fun. It's just a fun song. So next, from Electric Ladyland, a masterpiece. I mean, so I got to pick 2 songs from this, and that's going to be pretty easy. The somewhat opener, the title track, Have You Ever Been to Electric Ladyland? Jimmy's always shown his R&B influence on so many recordings, but I think this one is the pinnacle. Like how he took the blues to the other level, he took R&B to the next level. I mean, seriously, you could picture Marvin Gaye singing this song, and it almost seems like Jimmy, through this song, could be added to that pantheon of performers like Marvin Gaye, to Michael Jackson, just on this song alone. And he's got the background singing, he plays bass on it and does all the guitars, and it's hard not to want to sing along, with either the backup singers or his lead voice. And I equally love the first take, which is guitar only. And I'll get into that later, so keep watching. That's right. Keep watching. And so, the second song, well, what do you think it's going to be? Of course, the last one, Voodoo Child, Slight Return. And I will say this. I'm not saying there's a bad version out there. A bad live version that Jimmy did of Voodoo Child. But I have not heard a live version that is as good a listen as the studio version here. How could they compete? He could overdub a second guitar, which you hear on there. Maybe some extra percussion. Maybe have that guitar panning from speaker to speaker, adding echo and making those leads rip and fade out like a burning star in the blackened sky at night. Voodoo Child, Slight Return. Definitely a favorite. Coming in close. From his second album, which opens up like this. Axis, Old as Love, which really showcased his songwriting style. I mean, they all did, really, but you can get lost in his guitar playing, you know. But it all blends together so good on this record. And the two songs that jump out on me, definitely in my top 10. Ain't No Tellin'. It's only about like 2 minutes long, but it's early Hendrix experience with Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell. A great example of these guys playing together. It's kind of a shame they never played it live. But I love that song. I just think it's great. And I love his singing on it. I love the guitar on it. I love, you know, just how it goes, man. And next, beautiful ballad, Castles Made of Sand. I mean, it's got, you know, that iconic intro. It's got wonderful lyrics, some melancholy, little verses about life, and it's got, you know, backwards guitar, and what's not to love about it, you know? It shows Jimmy's songwriting, you know, progressing and really showcasing the talent that he had. He certainly was a man of many talents, and that's a great example of it. So we got two more coming up from the first album, Are You Experienced? And I'll just have to say, I think, you know, another beautiful ballad, which, you know, sort of is, you know, the beginning of where he would take, you know, his songwriting to with like Castles Made of Sand. And that's The Wind Cries Mary. You know, great song, beautiful lyrics. I think the version that everyone is used to hearing on the radio is second or third take, you know. So it's a great example of the early experience together. And my number one song would be the last one on this record, which is the title track, Are You Experienced? That is, you know, probably my number one favorite Hendrix song. And with the right listen, at the right time, I can be moved to tears with this one, man. I think it's like, just, it's so nice. The minimalist piano, the drone of the bass, you know, pumping it along, and the plucky strumming of Jimi, you know, with the drums and the backwards cymbals and a backwards guitar solo with that pinched harmonic, you know, it's great. And that vocal melody, man, to me, that's the best. You know, that's the best. So, you know, I pulled out some of the other albums just because there's so many other. Well, I mean, there's so many honorable mentions on those records, you know. But I'll just talk about some of these records real quick. This one, Smash Hits. You know, even though you've probably heard these songs a lot, I would recommend this album because I was listening to it one day. I put this on, and I wasn't really like, I don't know, I was doing something else. I wasn't really paying attention to it, but I'm, you know, picking up on the fact that, hey man, these mixes are different. These are unique mixes. So, you know, even though you might have seen these titles before on other albums, you know, it's a good listen. It's worth hearing if you're really into Jimi. If you're just a casual listener, you might not pick up on it, but for all you Hendrix freaks out there like me, man, you really enjoy it. Now, here's a weird record. So, this might be a German or this is a West German pressing, right, of The Cry of Love, but it's a gatefold, and it's a gatefold with the third posthumous album. So Cry of Love was the first, then came the soundtrack to Rainbow Bridge, which includes Dolly Dagger and Hey Baby and Earth Blues, and a great studio recording of the Star Spangled Banner, which is just like stacks and stacks of guitars. It's just guitar overdubbed on top of itself, some sped up, fast, feedback dripping. I mean, it's great. I don't have that LP here, so I will have to get it. The Hendrix family did re-release it. I think like 180 gram or 200 gram vinyl. It's all remastered, so I'll definitely pick it up. But in any case, after that one, after Rainbow Bridge, came the third posthumous release, and you know, Eddie Kramer and Mitch Mitchell, you know, had a hand in this, and it's called War Heroes, and it's not a bad one. I like Bleeding Heart. It's got a mix of, you know, the Cry of Love era band, you know, with Jimmy, Billy, and Mitch, and The Experience with Noel, Mitch, and Jimmy. And you know, it's pretty cool. You know, it's got Isabella, Beginnings, Three Little Bears, which is pretty funny. Hendrix is singing Three Little Bears, and he's like, I can't get it. This is silly, man. You know, because his lyrics were goofy. you know, it's got this instrumental called Midnight, which really rips, and they added some flange on there that really makes it dramatic. Tax-free, really good. 2-guitar studio version that they would often play live with the original experience that was recorded during the, I believe during the Electric Ladyland sessions, '68. So, remember I was talking about, have you ever been to Electric Ladyland? And I told you that I enjoyed Take One. Well, the Jimi Hendrix family did release that version, and it was on that box set. It was just called the Jimi Hendrix Experience. I have it up here. I don't want to pull it out, but it's got like red velvet for the LP. It's like in a red velvet box, and has a picture of, I don't know why they just put the picture of Jimmy, Mitch, and Noel Redding on the cover, because, you know, the box set spans his entire, you know, recorded career, and, you know, so Billy Cox and Buddy Miles and, you know, the Woodstock band, they're all on there, you know, along with other special guests and stuff. So anyway, that's not important. What is important is the fourth and last studio posthumous album from the Michael Jeffrey era. I'm not sure what year this was released. This particular LP was from Uruguay, but it has the listing that's on the English release. I don't know if this album was released in America. You know, it is a kind of a scraping of the barrel at the time. You know, I mean, they got a version of Blue Suede Shoes on here, which is like them rehearsing it. Jimmy's telling the drum player what kind of beat to do, and he can't quite get it, and he's like, no, like this, and then they launch into it, and it's like, you know, did we have to listen to all that, you know, back and forth between the musicians? But now to get to what I really wanted to say. The track that closes this album, Loose Ends, which Eddie Kramer, I believe, produced this one too. But it's got the first take, and this is what's so beautiful about it, and it was released on that box set. Eddie Kramer's in the control room, and he's like, Jimmy, what's this called? What? What is this called? Electric Ladyland. Oh, okay. Click. And Jimmy just plays the most beautiful solo guitar. And it's just like, you know, the basic outline of Have You Ever Been to Electric Ladyland? And his tone is so beautiful. And the chords that he plays are so nice. It sounds like there's more than one guitar playing, which just shows the beauty of not only his guitar playing, but his songwriting. I mean, you know, again, Jimmy was a man of many talents, and I mean, wow, I love that. So, you know, so between all the Mike Jeffrey posthumous albums, he was killed in a plane crash in 1974, I believe it was. And then this other guy took control of the Hendrix estate and had tapes of his own, because he sort of helped Hendrix out in '69, and he released a bunch of albums from 1975 to 1994, right before the Hendrix family took control. So he released a bunch of albums, and some of them were live albums, which were really good. Some of them, well, the first two were controversial studio albums that had songs you never heard before. But he, for some of these tracks, took out the original musicians and replaced them with studio guys, like another drummer, another guitar player, other backup singers, other bass players, other percussionists. And while it was kind of refreshing to hear some of that stuff, they were controversial nonetheless because, but he, his idea was to, take these recordings and make something of them more than they were. I don't know if that makes sense, but so anyway, so, you got the first series of Mike Jeffrey posthumous albums, which included some live albums. Isle of Wight and was one, and so then Alan Douglas took over, had about a 20-year run, and then the Hendrix family gained control of his estate from Alan Douglas, and got a hold of all those tapes that Alan Douglas had in his possession. And not only that, Chaz Chandler, Jimmy's original producer, had studio tapes of his own that he had withheld and were holding on to. And the time was right to give those recordings to the Hendrix family. And so, here we are. They've damn near released everything. There's still a few elusive things that were never released. And, considering everything else they've released, I kind of wonder why they're holding on to this stuff. I mean, Christ, they've released just, Jimmy and Buddy Miles playing in the studio, which is fun to listen to because, you can hear them working out songs and just jamming, and this kind of thing. And it sounds great. It was recorded in the studio and the drums sound perfect. And, it sounds like they're like it, in your living room when you hear it. But that's something else. So this was the first album that the Hendrix family put out. And it's called First Rays of the New Rising Sun. And that was going to be, that was one of the titles Hendrix was considering for the album he was working on at the time he died. And so this one is basically a composite of The Cry of Love, War Heroes, and Rainbow Bridge. It's got Freedom, Isabella, Nightbird Flying, Angel, Room Full of Mirrors, which is a great song. Room Full of Mirrors is a great song. Angel is a great song. Nightbird Flying is great. Freedom is great. Isabella is a favorite too. So, I mean, I could go on and on about, great Hendrix songs. And this one has a lot. I mean, My Friend is cool. I like Stepping Stone. It's got Drifting and Astro Man and In From the Storm and Belly Button Window and Earth Blues. A good one. And then they followed that one up with this one. And this is the last album that I had pulled out. This is a fun one too. This is cool. Nice cover. South Side and Delta. And the title track of this is a real good one too. I mean, this one's pretty cool. It's sort of like a compendium of the other one, but it's got that, vibe of, some of these songs are finished, but not. This one includes, this one includes Stars That Play with Laughing Sam's Dice, STP, LSD. And that was a Chaz Chandler produced early single from the experience. And that's pretty cool. It's got an early version of All Along the Watchtower, which was actually produced by Chaz Chandler. So you can kind of think of this. They went on to Jimmy, after Chaz Chandler left during Electric Lady, Jimmy, of course, took it and ran with it. But this is an early production of Chaz Chandler. It's got Midnight from War Heroes. It's got Bleeding Heart from War Heroes. It's got Polygap from Rainbow Bridge. Drifter's Escape. Was also on Loose Ends. And that's a Bob Dylan song that has some great ripping Jimi Hendrix guitar, man. And it's got a fat bass, and, it's pretty cool. I like it. It's got Tax Free from War Heroes is on here. The studio version of Power of Soul, which was on Alan Douglas's first release that he put out, called Crash Landing. And on his release of Power of Soul, it's the Band of Gypsies. He just added a percussionist that wasn't there originally. So I mean, you can't really totally dismiss the Alan Douglas stuff. It just sort of made people crave to hear the original tapes, and that's what they released on this. This album opens up with Look Over Yonder, which is on that's on War Heroes, I believe. No, Look Over Yonder is on Rainbow Bridge. Whew. And that has some the most ripping studio Jimi Hendrix guitar, feedback, and just total control. I always liked it. And the title track of this, South Saturn Delta, was recorded during the Electric Ladyland sessions, and they brought in an arranger who worked with Jimmy on this song and brought in horns. And there's a picture of Jimmy sort of sitting in a semicircle in the middle of the horn section. And that's great. Mitch Mitchell's on the drums, and Jimmy might be playing the bass on that too. It's always fun to hear Jimmy play the bass, even if he's playing on that one or not. I'm just saying. So yeah, this is a fun album, and so there's a few. I mean, I will say this: the Hendrix family's really done a great job in giving the public, just damn near everything. And they've released several box sets of studio recordings alone. West Coast Seattle Boy is pretty cool. And that one includes the tapes that Chaz Chandler was holding on to. And there's some great stuff on there. And that, not only does that box set span, from early experience to the to Jimmy's later recordings, it also includes a whole side of his stint as a session guy, and you can hear him playing behind the Isley Brothers and Little Richard and a bunch of R&B guys at the time. And so for historical purposes, that was pretty cool that they did that. So that was West Coast Seattle Boy. There's the Jimi Hendrix box that was, you know, in velvet that I had mentioned earlier. And that's like 8 LPs, and that, you know, spans the entire Hendrix experience. And I think that one includes the very last studio recording. They were just jamming on a blues, and the tape ran out. And I guess they never reloaded it. They just stopped playing, and whenever they discovered it, and I think he had to. I think that was done at Electric Lady, so I think he had to, you know, go back over to England, and you know that's when he did the Isle of Wight festival. And so there was that box. There's the Electric Ladyland box set, has some studio recordings and demos. Years ago, probably about in the late 90s, when, you know, we first got on the internet in our house, I emailed whatever email you could reach, you know, the Hendrix estate at. I sent them an idea for a massive box set for Electric Ladyland, because on the bootlegs there's so many alternate takes and alternate mixes of these songs. I mean, and I said, you know, release them all in chronological order. And they didn't. When they did the 50th Hendrix box set, I was a little disappointed at what we got from that. But, you know, I'm not the one making the decisions, but, you know, if it wasn't for collectors and fans and, you know, freaks and, you know, bootleggers, we wouldn't have bonus tracks and box sets of unreleased stuff. So there you go. So anyway, you know, there's my top 10 favorite Hendrix songs with some other stuff, other stories for you to contemplate. Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, you too. And you, looking over your friend's shoulder, I want to thank you for watching. And happy birthday, Jimi Hendrix, wherever you are. And your music, well, your recordings will last forever. And with that, I'd just always like to say, to you that's watching me and hearing me now, never be afraid to step into the pleasure den of the absurd.